I rushed into the fire to save Alice, ending up with severe burns on my face. To repay me, she decided she wanted to marry me. But after we got married, she hated me all the time. She would lash out with harsh and spiteful words. Looking at your face makes me so sick. I can't even eat. Why did you save me back then? She blamed me for meddling and tearing her apart from the man she loved. In the end, I ended my own life to set her free. In the next moment, I opened my eyes again. Faced with flames roaring, I chose to turn away. Let go of me. Vincent is still in there. I need to save him. I held Alice tightly, trying to pull her away. The fire was getting stronger, threatening to spread further. I realized I had a second chance. The next moment, I released her from my grip. If you want to save your loved one so badly, go ahead. In my past life, a sudden fire broke out in the classroom, and everyone fled in a panic. When I found out Alice was still inside, I rushed in without thinking, trying to save her. When I found her, she refused to leave, desperately trying to run back in because Vincent, her love, was still in there. The flames were too intense. I feared for Alice's safety and tried to drag her out. In our struggle, she pushed me down, causing my face to get burned and disfigured. Watching her run back in without hesitation, I finally wised up and left the fire. As soon as I got out, I was slapped. Why did you come out alone? Where's my daughter? Why didn't you bring her out? I pushed my tongue against the cheek that got slapped, then saw who it was. It was Alice's mom, also my teacher. In my past life, I risked my life to save someone and got disfigured. Alice said she wanted to marry me, to take responsibility for me. I didn't want her to feel indebted, so I was hesitant to agree. Alice and her mom stayed with me day and night, trying to convince me. Feeling ashamed of my disfigurement, I couldn't accept myself and refused to face others. But Alice held my hand, crying, saying she loved me. Felix, no matter what you look like, I love you. If you can't accept how you look, then I'll get disfigured too. She cried, taking out a fruit knife, threatening to scar her face. I softened and agreed to marry her. But after we got married, Alice changed completely. She never went out with me, nor did she acknowledge our marriage publicly. It was later I learned that Alice had always blamed me for stopping her from saving Vincent. She blamed me for Vincent's death in the fire. Countless times she came home drunk, venting her anger at me. She'd say, "Why don't you just die? You ugly freak. Who are you trying to disgust? Why was it Vincent who died and not you?" Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore, fell into depression, and took my own life. Coming back to the present, Alice's mom awaited my response. I gave a bitter smile. "Teacher," Alice was determined to go in to save Vincent. I couldn't stop her. Alice's mom glared at me, then urgently yelled at the firefighters, "Go save my daughter. What are you waiting for?" Even though the firefighters were moving as fast as they could, she made them out to be lazy. This time, Alice finally got what she wanted and saved Vincent. Vincent survived but lost a leg. Alice was hit by a falling ceiling, losing the use of one hand. Looking at it, those two were actually well matched. I went to visit Alice in the hospital. She was sharing a room with Vincent. They looked at each other lovingly. My presence interrupted their atmosphere. Still, I was technically Alice's boyfriend at this point. Alice gave me a somewhat evasive look, and I could read her mind. Having had a brush with death, she realized who she truly loved and wanted to cherish him. "Alice, let's break up. I wish you happiness." I threw out these words, seeing the unhidden joy in her eyes as she glanced at the man on the other bed. It was like she was saying, "Finally, we can be together." After our official breakup, Alice and Vincent's relationship was flaunted openly. They even posted on social media with the caption, "In the moment of crisis, you realize how important you are." I laughed bitterly and shut off my phone. If they loved each other so much, why did they drag me into it in the first place? I met Alice during a volunteer event. We were helping stray animals near the school, and I got scratched by a stray cat. She was so worried her eyes turned red like a frightened little rabbit. "Are you hurt? Let me take you to the hospital. Don't be scared." On the way, she held my wrist, blowing on the wound to ease my pain. I laughed and said it wouldn't help. Alice tilted her head, staring at me earnestly. My mom said, blowing on it makes it hurt less. She bowed her head, gently blowing on the wound with a mixture of seriousness and tenderness. My heart raced. I thought, how could a girl be so adorable? Later on, I found out that her mom was my teacher, and I was over the moon, thinking it was fate. Our acquaintance and friendship effortlessly blossomed. Back then, I didn't know who Vincent was, or that Alice had feelings for someone else. I started to pursue Alice. Initially, she seemed unsure, and my roommates urged me to give up. They said she was leading me on. I still remember how I replied. I said, why isn't she leading on others, just me? The night Alice agreed to let me pursue her was also the day I learned about Vincent. Vincent got together with the computer science department's beauty, and Alice accepted my pursuit. That night, she cried and asked me if I would risk everything to be good to her. I said yes. In the end, I did risk everything, yet she blamed me, blaming me for why Vincent died and not me. Vincent became disabled, and Alice even quit school to accompany him through rehabilitation. Ironically, Vincent couldn't accept he had become handicapped and even started blaming Alice. Why did you save me? Now I'm just a cripple. I might as well be dead. Alice cried, kneeling on the ground, pleading with him to get proper treatment. Vincent, I love you. No matter what you become, I will still love you. You're not a worthless guy. This sounds just like something from a past life. Anyway, thanks to Alice's encouragement, Vincent stuck with the treatment. He got a prosthetic for his amputated right leg. Alice's mom, of course, didn't like Vincent. After all, her daughter lost a hand because of a man. She's not going to be happy about that. It got to the point that every time I was in her class, she gave me a hard time. She'd ask questions about stuff she hadn't even taught or make me stay after class to rewrite test papers. And sometimes, she'd take jabs at me during class. Some students just think about themselves, messing up other people's lives while theirs go on just fine. One day, I just couldn't take it anymore. I stood up right there, even though my roommates tried to stop me. Teacher, you can just call me out by name if you think I didn't save your daughter. I rolled up my sleeve, showing a burn scar that still hadn't healed. Looked pretty gnarly. This scar is from trying to save your daughter from the fire. She insisted on going in. When I tried to stop her, she shoved me down, leaving me with this. Do I have some obligation to save her? If she loses a hand over another man, what does that have to do with me? The class was shocked. Yeah, Alice decided to risk it all, but why drag Felix into it? And she was dating Felix at the time. Why go rescue another guy? Honestly, she brought it on herself. Seriously, the teacher's bias is just too obvious. Felix is innocent, and it's not like we couldn't tell the teacher was targeting him. Everyone's chatter totally exposed the ugly truth. Now, with the teacher mad at me, my buddies were worried. Everyone knows she's petty. Be careful or she'll make sure you fail her class. But I knew she wouldn't. If I kept quiet, she might have failed me out of spite. By making a scene, everyone knows now. I've always gotten scholarships. Who'd believe I'd fail? And soon enough, she'd have bigger problems to worry about than me. She didn't want Alice with Vincent, especially now that he's got a limp. That day, she stormed into the hospital, saying she'd take Alice away. Of course, Alice refused. She even put a fruit knife to her neck to force her mom's approval. Mom, you've already ruined things between Vincent and me once. I barely survived this time. Can't you just let me be? In the end, the teacher caved. No matter how much she disliked Vincent, she could never go against her daughter's will. In our past life, Alice didn't end up with Vincent much because of her mom. Alice grew up in a single-parent home after her dad cheated and left them, so her mom hated men in general. Plus, Vincent always had girls around him and grew up without parents, only a grandma. Her dislike for him wasn't surprising. I heard Alice even threaten the teacher to get her approval. Mom, if you don't let me be with Vincent, I'll break my own leg. Then you won't mind him being disabled. That night, her mom was admitted to the hospital from the stress. But even so, Alice insisted on staying with Vincent. Finally, unable to fight her daughter's resolve, the teacher relented. While I was busy preparing for my own life, Alice and Vincent were finally discharged. They were the talk of the campus for their epic love story. Everyone knew about it, and of course, as her ex, I got teased a lot. But I was just happy to have a second chance at life. What's some gossip in comparison? Seeing them again, Vincent looked worn out with a gloomy expression. You could tell he was using a prosthetic leg. His walk looked a bit awkward. Alice fussed over him constantly, making sure he was comfortable. She was clearly in love with Vincent, even if he never showed her any warmth. Thankfully, I'd already completed that class. Today was my last. Felix, thank you. About that day, I'm really sorry. I've known Vincent since we were kids. I just could not save him. After class, Alice quietly sat next to me. I was just about to leave but paused as she spoke. Vincent's gaze was locked on us, like he was worried we might start dating again. You don't need to explain. I wish you happiness. I swallowed my feelings. In a past life, I kept her with me for 10 years, but now, I've finally let her go back to Vincent. I left, not noticing Alice's conflicted look as I turned away. As I walked away, I overheard Vincent scolding her. What did you say to him? If you still care about him, just be with Felix. Why waste time with a useless guy like me? Then I heard Alice quietly crying. I didn't hesitate and quickened my pace, leaving them behind. For the next few months, I didn't even have to attend classes. I was busy with projects in my advisor's lab. My admission to grad school was through my advisor's recommendation, so there was no exam, which was a relief. In a past life, I refused to leave home because of my facial injuries, disappointing my advisor. This time, I needed to give it my all. Other than sleeping, everything I did revolved around research. My advisor even suggested I take a break. Felix, I know you're feeling down after the breakup, but you need to take care of yourself. That's when I discovered everyone thought I was distracting myself with work because of the heartbreak. A strange misunderstanding. I didn't bother explaining. With the project stalled, I had no time to think about anything else. Then, unexpectedly, Alice reached out again. She apologized for hurting me and hoped I wouldn't destroy my health because of her. Honestly, things haven't been great for me lately. Vincent's personality has changed a lot because of his leg, and he gets angry and snaps often. Plus, several companies he liked turned him down because of his leg, and he's been feeling sorry for himself. Alice gave a bitter smile at that moment. I almost wanted to ask her if she regretted saving Vincent, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. She lost the use of one of her hands, too, but never complains. She's all about Vincent. Alice loves him so much. How could she regret it? Guess I was being petty. Alice, we're already broken up. If there's nothing important, let's just not stay in touch. I don't want to get involved in their drama anymore. I just want to live for myself. Alice was about to say something, her face full of sadness. I was getting a bit impatient. Back when I loved her, everything about Alice seemed adorable. When she frowned, I wanted to give her the world. But now we've broken up. What does she want from me? Back then, she used me to get back at Vincent and got into a relationship with me out of spite. Even after finding out, I stupidly felt lucky to have her. I once thought if I kept treating her well, she'd eventually see me. Alice, you know I don't have to make you feel better anymore. She wavered at that, eyes reddening a bit. It reminded me of our time together when she'd rush into my arms whenever she was upset. When I asked what was wrong, she'd say, I just need to recharge. I'll be back to full strength soon. It always made me feel sorry for her for being so understanding. Turns out, she was upset over Vincent and looking for comfort from me. Her backup. No wonder she never explained why. I foolishly thought Alice didn't want me to worry. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but look at Alice with some disgust. Felix, I know you're mad at me, right? She started to cry. In the past, I'd have been heartbroken. But now I just stepped back a few steps, keeping my distance. That seemed to hurt her even more. Her eyes filled with hurt, reaching for my sleeve, but I brushed her off. Alice, you already have a boyfriend now. She seemed to think of something, abruptly stopped crying, and smiled. Felix, you still like me, don't you? You're just mad I got with Vincent. But you were the one who broke up with me. I suddenly realized what Alice meant. Does she want to be with Vincent and still have me on the side? Want to keep me around as a backup? Too bad. I'm not falling for it anymore. I turned to leave, not wanting to argue with her anymore. Felix, I have a favor to ask, Alice hurriedly said. I paused and looked back at her. It's not that I was soft-hearted, just curious about what she was up to. I heard her say, Vincent wants to join your research group. Can you ask your advisor to help out? I'm such a fool. I knew she only cared about Vincent, so what was I hoping for? My feelings were a mixed mess, sour and bitter, leaving me speechless. Alice looked expectant, seemingly sure I'd agree. I can't, I said coldly, watching her expectations crumble, eyes filled with disbelief. That felt good. Back at the dorm, I found out Alice had been bragging about getting Vincent into the research group, saying I'd definitely agree if she asked. So when my roommates heard I turned down Alice's request, they sighed with relief. Man, glad we didn't misjudge you. I was amused. They even placed bets on it. No wonder Alice looked so upset. I guess she thought I was a pushover. To say I wasn't affected would be a lie. Even after a decade of marriage in a past life, I knew what kind of person Alice was. Even if I'd stepped aside for her and Vincent, why did she still treat me like a joke under her shoe? I thought rejecting Alice would make her back off. But no, she convinced the professor to force Vincent into our research team. Not that I'm wearing tinted glasses, but what can a finance major do in a physics research group? Does he know what electromagnetism and electrodynamics are? Thermodynamics? And the worst part, the professor assigned him to my team. It's just frustrating. If it were just Vincent, I could maybe handle it. But Alice insisted on being there too. When assigning tasks, I was stressed. If I made random assignments, others might think I'm being vindictive. But for important roles, I couldn't trust them either. Eventually, the professor settled on Vincent handling experimental data and Alice buying daily supplies. Privately, the professor mentioned Vincent's dad donated a building to the school. Vincent specifically requested to join our research group, so the school couldn't do much. Vincent's dad? Wasn't he supposed to be an orphan? Even in my past life, I never heard about Vincent's father. Maybe my rebirth caused a butterfly effect. After checking the school forum, I pieced together the story. Vincent was found by his grandma, not her biological child. But after a school fire made the news, his dad saw him on TV, investigated, and found out Vincent was his son. So Vincent's the son of a billionaire? Alice hit the jackpot. She's Vincent's savior now. She'll probably marry into wealth. Unbelievable, Alice's the ultimate winner here. Reading comments on the forum, I couldn't help but be amazed. Vincent's identity was one thing, but does Vincent love Alice back? His ex died in a fire, and their bodies were found holding each other in a past life. But in this life, Vincent was saved while his girlfriend died, and soon after, he got with Alice. And after that, it was like no one ever mentioned it again. Rumors around campus were more about how solid their relationship was. Everyone said Alice finally had her happy ending, but I knew better. When no one was around, Vincent's attitude towards Alice wasn't so great. I was supposed to head back to the dorms, but remembered I left something at the lab. Just as I reached the door, I heard Vincent's angry voice. Alice, are you laughing at me behind my back too? Laughing at my limp? At my disability? Do you feel sorry for me? Tell me. From my angle, I could just see Alice with her head down, softly crying. No, it's not like that, Vincent. I love you. To me, you're the best. I couldn't see Vincent's expression, but I could bet it wasn't pleasant. Wouldn't you say Felix is better? At least he's normal. Was he dragging me into this too? Honestly, that just seemed unfair. Then came the answer I expected. Vincent, don't you know that the whole thing with Felix was just to get at you? I never loved him. If you don't believe me, I have nothing more to say. Vincent panicked, pulling Alice into a tight hug, apologizing over and over. Alice, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I'm jealous of him. I hate myself for not being able to protect you like a normal guy. Alice smiled through her tears, and the two embraced sweetly. but my heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. I knew the truth all along, but hearing it from Alice's mouth still hurt. I silently warned myself. This was the last time I'd let her mess with my emotions. I kept trying to avoid them, but Vincent wouldn't let it go. Felix, you must hate me now, right? Even as a cripple, I not only took your father, I took the woman you love. That made me pause. Yeah, me and Vincent had a connection of sorts. No one knew that the allegedly powerful CEO, Vincent's real father, was actually mine too. The difference was he was the illegitimate son while my mom was the official wife. But my parents divorced ages ago, and I took my mom's last name. My dad was a player, and after divorcing my mom, every woman he dated couldn't have kids. Turns out, after some doctor visits, he learned he couldn't have children anymore. There was long-standing animosity between him and my mom, and even on her deathbed, she warned me not to forgive him. I didn't expect the old guy would even tell Vincent about me. Shows he cared at least a little for Vincent. That mom of yours really has no sense, Vincent said. If it weren't for that woman pushing my mom to the end, would I have grown up with a smelly old lady? Would I have lost a leg? I chuckled. Just because I stepped back didn't mean I was a pushover. He should have known better than to bring up my mom. I launched a punch straight at Vincent's face, knocking him down. Vincent, you illegitimate nobody, what makes you think you can act smug in front of me? Do you really think your dad loves you? He's just using you to provoke me, hoping I'll compete with you. Vincent was outmatched, unable to fight back as I pinned him to the ground. Just as I was about to throw another punch, I saw him smirk. Stop it! Alice screamed, rushing over. She pushed me away in a hurry to help Vincent up, full of worry. Vincent, are you okay? She asked, turning to glare at me. Felix, why are you hitting Vincent? Vincent put on an innocent face. Alice, I took you away. Felix hitting me is understandable. Can you imagine how I felt? Like I'd been forced to eat a pile of dirt. It was disgusting. I brushed off the dirt, getting up. Vincent, you never heard? If someone can take it, it's probably trash. Obviously, I was hinting at something. Alice's face changed, and she showed no hint of hiding her hatred towards me. I thought Vincent just wanted Alice's sympathy, but I soon learned I was wrong. Alice reported me for assaulting Vincent to the academic office. She claimed I bullied him, that it was personal retaliation. I of course denied everything, but the security camera angle was a blind spot, and with Vincent's injuries and Alice's testimony, Felix, why are you so stubborn? Just apologize to Vincent, and I'll help clear everything up, my advisor pleaded. But I wouldn't budge an inch. I was temporarily banned from all research. It's not like I didn't know Vincent's dad. Some things were unspoken but understood by everyone. A student without much influence. The son of the richest man. Everyone knew who to suck up to. I knew this was the old man's way of forcing me back to the family. But maybe they forgot, without me, there was no moving forward with this research. So I wasn't worried at all. I figured it was a good time for a break. After being reborn, I pushed myself too hard, so a rest was welcome. Since there was nothing for me at school, I just packed up and headed home. People thought I was just running away. A few sympathized with me, but against immense wealth and power, ordinary people's words meant little. Even with one leg, Vincent and his family's pull gave him more than enough influence at the school. In this society, the one thing we don't lack is people who look out for themselves. What's funniest is that the mechanical trend has taken over schools. It all started with Vincent. Even though he was disabled, his look still made him popular. Even with Alice as his official girlfriend, girls were still into Vincent. You wouldn't believe it. A girl once brought Vincent water while Alice was right there, and Vincent took it without a second thought and even gave out his number. Alice's face turned so dark. My buddy described it vividly over the phone. At first, Vincent was somewhat serious about Alice, maybe because of his male ego. But there was always a hint of resentment when he dealt with Alice. Once, I accidentally overheard them talking. Alice worried about Vincent walking too much and his prosthetic being uncomfortable. She suggested he use a wheelchair. Vincent's face changed instantly. He asked, "Do you think because you saved me, I'm supposed to obey you now?" Why did you save me? Should have just let me die. You want me to use a wheelchair, so everyone knows I'm disabled. This was all out on the field with so many people around. Vincent gave Alice no face, making her run away crying. What a patient hates most is people constantly reminding him of his condition, even if it's someone close. Besides, does Vincent really love Alice? Alice is just a pawn in his game. The day Vincent and I had a showdown before Alice showed up, Vincent chuckled in my ear. He said, Alice seems harmless, but she's pretty wild behind the scenes, right? She even makes videos for me to watch, just to please me. If it's just a fling, whatever. You're the one who treats her like she's precious. While on the phone with my buddy, he jokingly asked, do you think Alice will regret it and want to get back with you? I was about to say no way. Then the doorbell rang. Not many knew where I lived, and Alice was one of them. It was pouring outside, and Alice was drenched, with a handprint on her face. I'm sorry. I don't know where else to go, she sobbed. I sighed, feeling soft, and let her in. Felix, I regret it. I don't want to be with Vincent anymore. I paused, handing her a dry towel. What's that got to do with me? You made your choices. Alice, crying, told me Vincent was a freak. He tricked her into making intimate videos and would hit her whenever he was upset. Vincent also threatened to leak the videos online if she told anyone. Plus, Vincent had just been accepted back by his family, so Alice was scared to fight back. Alice knelt in front of me, begging, Felix, please help me, won't you? Vincent told me you share the same father. There must be something you can do. Seeing my blank reaction, Alice took a deep breath and took off her coat. She climbed onto my lap. Instinctively, I kicked her off. And just then, the police barged in, seeing that exact scene. I leaned against the wall, while Alice clutched her stomach on the floor, her clothes a mess. Someone reported harassment. Please come with us. I glanced at Alice. She couldn't meet my eyes. I chuckled, seeing how dirty they were playing. Too bad it didn't go as they'd planned. From the moment Alice walked in, everything she said and did was caught on my home's surveillance. After the investigation cleared things up, I was released. Outside the police station, Vincent was nowhere to be seen, but Alice waited at the door. The moment I exited, she rushed over. I'm sorry, Felix. I didn't mean for this. I didn't know about Vincent. Can you drop the act? I cut her off, annoyed. The moment you found out Vincent and I share a dad, I knew why you came. If I'm out of the picture, Vincent can inherit the fortune with no problem, right? Alice, quit the innocent act. It's sickening. And why was Vincent so desperate to destroy me? If my guess was right, it involved school. Sure enough, my professor called right after, asking me to return to continue the research project. He even mentioned Vincent would be done with the lab. I knew how important this project was. If it succeeded, the school and the professor would gain immense recognition. In the previous life, my professor had asked me several times to join. But back then, under Alice's influence, I thought I was worthless and didn't even want to face the professor. I knew how much the professor cared. He asked me to step back for my own good back then. Knowing this, I had to go back. I still knew what mattered more. Unfortunately, even when I let things go, someone wanted to stir things up. A video of a supposed college girl suddenly went viral. Alice and I, unfortunately, became the leads of this saga. The footage showed me being taken by police and then Alice, disheveled, leaving my place. These brief scenes had netizens cooking up a storm. Even when Alice admitted, yeah, I went to see Felix that night. Though it answered nothing, it instantly became solid proof in everyone's eyes. Before the scandal could even simmer, things flipped. I released the recording of Vincent and me arguing and footage from the night Alice visited. The recording had Vincent calling Alice all sorts of names. Initially, I didn't want things to get messy. I didn't want to meddle in their drama. But when a dog's biting, its owner must step in. Alice confessed later she came over because Vincent asked her to. Vincent said that as long as you have a record, you can't compete with him. You just lost a bit of reputation, but he lost a leg, Felix. Don't blame me. When her mom found out, she stormed into the classroom, slapped Alice, and forced her to break up with Vincent. Who knew? Alice said she was pregnant. The baby was Vincent's. Some people laughed at Alice, while others envied her. After all, she was marrying into money, right? Everyone thought Vincent would marry her, but he just casually said, "Get rid of it, you're not worthy of having my baby." Alice was dragged to the hospital for an abortion without anesthesia. She endured the surgery. She bled a lot and ended up having her uterus removed. Afterwards, Vincent grabbed her jaw like some kind of vampire. "Why did you save me? Why weren't you the one who died? Why was it my Lily? Alice, you deserve to die. I'd rather be dead with Lily. Someone as selfish as you should be dead. But you can't die. You could have saved Lily. Your jealousy, you wanted her dead. Didn't you? So that I'd be yours." Alice stared in horror at the person on the bed, clutching the sheets, unable to believe what Vincent had said. After a long silence, Vincent's hoarse voice said, "Lily and I have known each other for a long time. We grew up together in an orphanage. Then I got adopted. Finally met Lily again. But then the fire. Why wasn't it just me who died?" From Vincent's mouth, I finally understood what happened that day. After Alice ran into the fire, she quickly found Vincent. He was about to escape with his girlfriend. That's when Alice barged in. Alice tried to drag Vincent out, but the ceiling came crashing down. To protect Vincent, Alice pushed Lily out of the way. Lily got trapped. Alice dragged Vincent out. It's a story that makes you sigh. In my past life, Vincent and Lily perished in the fire. This time, Vincent was saved, but he ended up hating Alice. So, that's your reason for hating Alice? So much hate that you ended up killing her? Vincent nodded, looking relieved. I honestly don't care about money or status. I just wanted to torture Alice, to torture you. If I could, I'd kill you too. I know you were there that day. If you'd stopped Alice, at least Lily and I could have died together. After leaving the police station, I let out a deep breath. Alice was dead. Vincent did it himself. He didn't even try to run, just turned himself in. After being taken away, he said he'd only talk to me. I didn't expect it to be because of this. Alice's perspective. Before Vincent killed me, he asked if I regretted anything. In that moment, I thought, I regretted it. I regretted running into the fire to save Vincent that day. And I regretted not cherishing Felix. When Vincent squeezed my neck, it felt like I fell into a long dream. I dreamed I stayed with Felix instead of saving Vincent. In that dream, I married Felix. But after marriage, I wasn't good to him at all. In the dream, he always stayed in a gloomy room, and I spoke harshly to him. I called him ugly. I blamed him for not dying. No, how could that be me in the dream? I wanted to rush to Felix and tell him it wasn't his fault, that it was all my fault. I shouted at the dream version of me, "Why are you treating Felix this way? He loves you so much." Just as I was about to die, the dream version of me smiled at me. She said, "Alice, I am you. No matter the ending, someone as selfish as you will never have a good outcome. If I had the chance, I just wanted to tell Felix, I'm sorry.